Ladies, gentlemen, and fellow South Africans, I and this cabinet greet and welcome you to this auspicious gathering. Thank you so much for answering to the call to being part of such an initiative. This shows me that you really care about the development of South Africa. You are all important in playing a role in the shaping of the future of our country. And it is for this reason that we have brought together diversities of South Africans from all aspects and areas. For South Africa belongs to all who live in it. This is why it is crucial that we are involved in creating a tomorrow we not only want, but need. Be cautioned about the absence of key stakeholders from this dialogue. The organizations of the former President Thabo Mbeki, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. My request is that we see this as motivation to do better. Let this not just be more noise, but a commitment to seeing this nation prosper. The National Development Plan South Africa is a long-term framework with the intent to eradicate poverty and inequality. It was established in 2012 by an appointed commission in collaboration with the public, and it's to be implemented by 2030. We are only left with 4 years, ladies and gentlemen, 4, to see to it that life is better in 2030 than that of today. The National Development Plan, as we know it, is more focused on socio-economic factors that affect our nation. Before you stands a dream team of experts, powerhouse of skilled professionals, and cabinet of high-degree individuals who are passionate about change. You are about to be graced by Kilebogile Abrahams, tasked with speaking on poverty, inequality, and hunger. Mahlohonolo Musia right next to her on social cohesion and nation building. Kutlwano Low right next to her on gender-based violence and safety. The conclusion will be done by Uaratwa Jabetla, who will sum everything up and give you clarity on everything you are about to hear today. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just dropped my pen, and in the same way, my cabinet will deal with the issues that are an enemy to the development of South Africa. We mean everything we say. South Africa is trusting the right people, I assure you. We know our business and we will make sure to it that it is fulfilled. As an amazing person of prominence, a member of this cabinet, Kilebogile Abrahams, ascends to address the nation on poverty, inequality, and hunger. Allow me to say, overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity.
It is an act of justice. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. You look fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, reintroducing myself, I am a Water Police founder of the Water Police Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we talk about poverty, inequality, and hunger. But isn't water a basic need? Right. Ladies and gentlemen, there is 42.5% of the intensity of poverty in the Northern Cape province. Okay, what about the other provinces in South Africa? This is the reason why our country, our nation, and our society is downgrading. Ladies and gentlemen, talk about Dr. Suliman. Oh, my fellow friend. We met back in the days and we confused the part where South Africa is improving or South Africa is not improving. South Africa is a developing country because we are swimming in poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Suliman is the founder of the Gift of the Givers, which is my fellow friend. I was with him when he drafted the whole thing of improving our lives. I was there. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Suliman is there for delivering aid with over 6 billion. Couldn't you, like, Mercedes-Benz, big house? But that's the mentality we as South Africa have. It's not about you yourself. It's about everyone around you who is affected by your actions. That's why we have the correctional center. That's why we have law enforcement to combine ourselves and brighten the future of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, 47 countries have benefited from this, and it is because of me and Dr. Suliman. Ladies and gentlemen, aid must be immediate yet sustainable and effective with an approach that is going to help South Africans overall achieve their common goal, the embetterment of South Africa. Let South Africa shine as bright as the diamond and shine as glowingly as the sun that we compare with the gold. Right. Gauteng, you should approve. Right. South Africa's poverty rate hovers at 63.5%, with unemployment at 32.6% and hunger affecting over 8% of households severely. This is affecting our nation, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not here for this. That is not an abstract. This is a problem to our nation. This is the reason why, as nations, we don't combine ourselves. We cannot be better than Gauteng. Gauteng, we need to be better than all of the other continents. This is South Africa. This is Africa. All of us are South Africans. It's not Northern Cape. But ladies and gentlemen, we are the best. Ladies and gentlemen, now I am opening a fresh idea from my cue cards. Let's blend Suleiman's humanitarian spirit. Solar harvest hubs. Community-owned urban farms in townships, powered by affordable solar farms in townships, technology to grow nutrition crops year-round. This is not going to be for Vision 2030. No, it's going to be until we die. And the sky is the limit. So let's do what will benefit us for the whole entire lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, let's also adapt solutions and partner with non-organization companies. Companies like the NGO. I'm not too young to be part of the NGO. I have a brain. So, ladies and gentlemen, the people who are taking over this country is us, especially the Northern Cape Cabinet, because our innovative solutions will brighten you. But I cannot take everything, ladies and gentlemen. I have beautiful people here. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the Northern Cape Cabinet, the goal is to ensure no South African goes home hungry. Even coming from school, you cannot be hungry. That's a problem to me, myself, and the whole South Africa at large. So turning this dialogue into a tangible progress, we have to interact. You must interact with the people next to you so that you can know what their brains are also thinking about this speech. Ladies and gentlemen, overcoming poverty is hard. Talking about poverty, inequality, and hunger. We cannot be looking at certain corners and ignore the others. When we talk about inequality, we're talking about private schools and public schools. I am from a public school and understand the pain of looking at your teacher teach you there and know, am I going to be employed in the next 5 years? This is an issue to me because as a learner of Emang Moho Comprehensive School, we have an infrastructure that has been there for years. But because we have potential as learners who come from the roots, we understand the pain of going home knowing that in the next coming years, there might be a probability that you won't have an occupation. I deserve to be a lawyer. I deserve to fight for my country. And if no one will fight for my country, I will fight for it myself, including the people who have the same common goal. I consider myself as a leader. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce my beautiful, prominent leader from our cabinet who will be touching on social cohesion and nation building. All because of poverty, inequality, and hunger, we need people like Ms. Musia right here to enlighten us and teach us something. I bet you know nothing about social cohesion and nation building.
Thank you very much, Abrams. That was indeed wonderful. And indeed, poverty, inequality, and hunger is a very big issue in South Africa. But worry not. That can be tackled through social cohesion and nation building. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa's stats has released that our social cohesion index is sitting at 65.7%. Now, let me tell you something. We cannot work with that percentage. We need to increase that percentage. Ladies and gentlemen, when we say social cohesion, we refer to the bond that holds communities and societies together to cooperate and coexist harmoniously. When we say nation building, we refer to a process of forging a common nation building, loyalty, and a sense of belonging within the people of the state. Now, the way forward in solving the inequality and the lingering apartheid scars that we have in South Africa is through social cohesion and nation building. In South Africa, we experience gaps that are birthed by the lingering apartheid as well as inequality. Now, when I say gaps, I'm talking about your racial gaps. I'm talking about the gaps between the rich and the poor. I'm talking about the gaps that have been there with the divisions in the communities. I stand before you talking from experience. In our province in the Northern Cape, we have a micronation called Orania. Now, Orania only allows residence for a certain race, which is the white people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is such places that actually infuriates us and actually pushes us as the Northern Cape Cabinet to stand before you and to emphasize the importance of social cohesion and nation building. There's someone called Siya Kolisi. Siya Kolisi, who captains the national rugby team. Siya Kolisi comes from a background full of poverty. But look at where he is today. He managed to rise up from the poverty and be a great leader that he is. Ladies and gentlemen, inspired by Siya Kolisi, I stand before you to propose unity leagues. Now, the unity leagues will be there to reunite South Africa as all. Everyone from all various sectors in South Africa will come together and be one voice. The purpose of the league is to wipe off all the divisions in South Africa and create South Africa as one nation. Now, the Unity Leagues has been produced by the Northern Cape Province Cabinet, partnered with Siya Kolisi Foundation. Now, the Unity Leagues as well as Kolisi Foundation will work together and making sure that South Africa gets united. South Africa becomes one. Nobody will be set apart just because of what the race says or what the pocket says or what the surname says. Remember that in order for us to have South Africa as a built nation, we must start with uniting South Africa. There is no way, ladies and gentlemen, that we could have a built nation if our nation is not united. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of social cohesion, I have a special someone right here, a junior police trainee who will be enlightening you more on gender-based violence and safety. Now, I must warn you, he is a real enemy of gender-based violence and safety. Mr. Lowe, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you, Mahlohonolo Musia, for that wonderful and empowering speech. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the vital conversation of our nation's future. For my fellow South Africans, let me remind you of what Mahlohonolo Musia has stated in her speech. She said that it's not all about the bonds to hold the community together, but implying the art of change, where it pulls you out of who you were, out of what you were, in order to be you. Change isn't gradual. It's a break from what was. It will disrupt, demand, and reshape everything that you once were. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, indeed, change is the only way we can advance as a nation. Now let's get to business, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are brought here to talk about the national dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a prominent leader who will speak about gender-based violence and safety in our country. Gender-based violence is a national crisis that persists in our daily lives today. Gender-based violence affects us negatively in our community today. It persists in schools and in our society due to gender norms and stereotypes, where our children experiences sexual abuse and harassment, all because of lack of safety and security. Ladies and gentlemen, gender-based violence does not discriminate. Any person of any race, age, and sexual orientation can be a victim of gender-based violence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, gender-based violence can be caused by someone who is abusive, who is jealous, obsessive, and aggressive. And this may lead on leaving scars on families, affecting families, communities, and our democracy itself. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how can we confront this issue? We can confront this issue by drawing the inspiration from Lindiwe Desiree Masibuko's powerful powerful advocating as a writer and a former politician. Ladies and gentlemen, Lindiwe Masibuko confronts gender-based violence as a crisis rooted in power imbalances and outdated norms. Lindiwe Masibuko highlights how gender-based violence fuels poverty, inequality in our country, and demanding systematic change. That actually highlights on what Mr. Plaatje has stated. He stated that we should introduce the NDP 2030, meaning the National Development Plan 2030. Its main focus is to eliminate poverty, reducing inequality in our country in order to progress. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I need you to take this into consideration. We need to think about men. We need to think about men who face this gender-based violence. We need to promote equality in our country in order to have productivity, innovation, and a future that is a prosperity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, strengthening the law enforcement is crucial because it will stop corruption in our society. It will stop crime that necessitates in our daily lives, affecting us, ladies and gentlemen. Now, with that being said, let's set the tone for a constructive change and think of a future that is better for everyone, ensuring that no one is left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I would gladly like to give off this time to my concluder, Oaradwa Jabetla. She will highlight our main points, summarizing our arguments. And as she wraps up this dialogue, she will be responsible for synthesizing the awareness into action. Ms. Oaradwa Jabetla, the floor is all yours.
Wow, that's so wonderful, isn't it, guys? Okay. You're such an ocean of wisdom, Mr. Lowe. Thank you so much for inviting me to the stage. I acknowledge you and the team of the cabinet. Plaatje, Abrams, Musia, and including you again, for informing our fellow South Africans about our nation. Your work is indeed remarkable. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. You have been addressed, and I also hope that you heard and understood statistics that were mentioned by the cabinet. Is very disturbing, and change has to be done. Solutions given by the cabinet not only stop the challenges we face, but prevent them. Remember what we said to you. We mentioned poverty, inequality, and hunger. By saying that, we mean there is a kid who's going to go to bed without a drop of clean water or proper food. That also affects social cohesion and nation building. We mentioned the 31 was gender-based violence and safety. There are victims out there who are affected by gender-based violence and are facing humiliation. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would like to call upon one of my members to come and join us to the stage, who is Ms. Reed. As she's about to come to the stage, let us pay our attention. Let us all pay the attention as she is about to read the pledge for us, the call of action.
Thank you, Ms. Araja, for giving me this opportunity and to read out our flag as the Northern Key Cabinet. Our call of action reads as follows. We urge all South Africans to participate in the national dialogue, to share their ideas and to contribute in the development of our country. Let's work together to build a future for all, and let's show what it is to be South African. Resilience, resourceful, and united.
Let's go.